Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to Xavier University. My name is Colleen Hanich, and I am in my 5th year as Xavier's 35th president. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome our candidates seeking to serve this great city of Cincinnati as its mayor. So first, we have Mayor Aftab Pureval. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to welcome Mr. Cory Bowman. I'm also pleased to welcome to Xavier the Cincinnati Enquirer, your host for this evening, including Executive Editor Burl Love and the Enquirer's Opinion Editor, Kevin Aldridge, who will serve as tonight's moderator. This evening, we will also benefit from the expertise of the Enquirer's Politics Editor, Carl Weiser, and Xavier Newswire Editor-in-Chief, Claire McKinley, who, representing the voices of our students and the broader Cincinnati community, will both pose questions to the candidates. A very special welcome to the Ohio Debate Commission. Finally, in addition to all of the welcoming of those who are in attendance with us this evening, as well as those joining us by live stream, I'm especially pleased to see that so many of tonight's members and attendees are Xavier students. Musketeers, I know this is a very busy time of the semester, and I commend you for recognizing the importance of being here this evening. As we know, civic engagement is about more than creating informed citizens. It's also how we develop empowered communities. Similarly, civil discourse is more than simply conversations among those with differing viewpoints. When we engage in constructive dialogue, we model the values of intellectual engagement, curiosity, empathy, active listening, and critical thinking. Best of all, we learn from one another. Tonight, I look so forward to learning a great deal more from our candidates and the issues that are important to all of us. I would now like to invite the Enquirer's Executive Editor, Burl Love, to kick off this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, President Hanich. As she said, I'm Burl Love, the editor of the Cincinnati Enquirer, and on behalf of the Enquirer and our host, Xavier University, and our partners, the Ohio Debate Commission and Cincinnati City Cable, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight because it's important. The Enquirer is committed to serving as a platform for our community to discuss and debate the important issues of the day. And if you've seen our op-ed pages lately, you know that this mayoral election and the issues surrounding it have used up more than their fair share of ink. But our commitment to community engagement extends beyond what you might have read in the paper or on your smartphone at cincinnati.com. Facilitating live in-person forums and debates like the one about to convene tonight are another important way we bring candidates closer to the people they hope to serve. That's why I especially would like to thank Mayor Aftab Pureval and his challenger, Cory Bowman, for accepting our invitation to debate tonight. Your commitment to this time-honored tradition in our democratic process is admirable, and we don't take it for granted. And now, please let me introduce our moderator tonight, Kevin Aldridge. Kevin, in his 10 years of serving as the Enquirer's opinion and engagement editor, has worked hard to elevate our opinion content so it rises above the divisive and mean-spirited free-for-all we see all too often, especially on our social media feeds. And he has become a very skillful debate moderator, as you will soon see. Everyone, please welcome Kevin Aldridge.
All right, good evening, and welcome to the Cincinnati Mayoral Debate, hosted by the Cincinnati Enquirer, the Ohio Debate Commission, Xavier University, and Cincinnati City Cable. The two candidates vying to be the next mayor of Cincinnati for the next hour will discuss some of the most pressing issues facing the Queen City. We'll meet them in just a moment, But first, let me set the ground rules for this evening. And you've already met our panel of questioners, but I'll introduce them one more time. So our distinguished panels will assist me in asking a series of questions of each candidate. They will have 2 minutes to answer. A bell will ring when they have 30 seconds remaining, and a bell will ring twice when their time is up. No second ring? Near the end of the debate, there will be a rapid fire round where candidates will have 30 seconds each to answer a series of questions. The moderator has the discretion to allow candidate rebuttals up to 1 minute, or ask for further clarification or follow-ups to any of their responses. Each candidate will get 2.5 minutes for their closing statements. The question of who goes first tonight and who gets the final word was determined by a coin toss backstage. You have no idea how difficult it was to find a coin to do that coin toss. Nobody carries change anymore. To ensure we stay on schedule tonight, we are asking you, our live audience, to limit your cheers and applause to 2 times. 1 in a moment from now when we introduce our candidates again, and 2 at the conclusion of tonight's debate. And it should go without saying that we expect everyone here tonight to act in a civil and respectful manner. The Inquirer and both candidates have set the debate rules with a strong emphasis on mutual respect for the candidates and moderator, and the opportunity for all attendees here tonight to be unhindered in their ability to listen and hear the candidates' responses. Disruptive individuals will be asked to leave. Now, let's introduce our panel of questioners. Once again, we have Carl Weiser, who is our politics editor at the Cincinnati Inquirer, and we're pleased to have Claire McKinley, who is the editor-in-chief of the Xavier Newswire, Xavier's independent, student-run newspaper that serves the campus community. Thank you, Carl and Claire. And now for the candidates. We're glad to be joined by first, Mayor Aftab Pureval. Mayor Pureval is the 70th mayor of Cincinnati and the first Asian American to hold the office. Since taking office amid the compounding crisis of COVID, cratering city budgets, and corruption, he has delivered record investments in affordable housing, infrastructure, and public safety. A first-generation American raised in Southwest Ohio by Punjabi Tibetan parents, Aftab attended The Ohio State University and the University of Cincinnati College of Law, and formerly served as the Hamilton County Clerk of Courts. Mr. Aftab Pureval. Next, we have Mr. Cory Bowman. Mr. Bowman is a native Ohioan and a Miami University of Ohio graduate. He is the founding pastor of the River Church Cincinnati, co-owner of King's Arms Coffee, and a 2025 Cincinnati mayoral candidate. After earning his business degree in 2011, Mr. Bowman pursued ministry at River University in Tampa, where he met his wife, Jordan. They serve in various ministry roles, married, and now raise 4 children. Returning to Cincinnati, they planted the River Church and co-founded King's Arms Coffee in the West End to foster community ties. Mr. Bowman's mayoral campaign and his life's pursuit focuses on the prosperity and growth of others, aiming to drive revival and economic vitality in the city of Cincinnati. Mr. Cory Bowman. All right, so let's get into the reason why we're all here, to listen to what these candidates have to say about their vision for the city of Cincinnati. As I mentioned, per coin toss before the debate, Mr. Bowman won the right to take the first question. And so, Mr. Bowman, I'll direct this to you. Statistics show that crime rates overall in the city are down in several categories. While we have seen an uptick in recent months in violent crime in downtown and OTR. Your opponent in this race, Mayor Aftab Pureval, and many others on city council have said that Cincinnati is a safe city, while also saying that the violent crime experience recently is unacceptable. Not all residents, however, believe the statistics because of the headlines they see in the local news. My question to you, Mr. Bowman, is, do you believe that Cincinnati is safe? And if not, or if so, how do you convince these people in Cincinnati and potential visitors to the city that it is indeed safe?
Well, thank you so much for everybody that's here. Thank you to my incredible wife that's here on the front row with our fourth child, and to our 3 kids that are probably staying past their bedtime and watching. Hello, Sawyer, Finn, and Hazel. I love you so much. Thank you, Mom, for watching them tonight. I'll get right into the question. The key thing that I draw from the question is that you say many people believe that Cincinnati is unsafe because of news headlines. Now, as a pastor in the West End, as a business owner in the West End, and in our residents, we don't see it as a perception, we do see it as a reality. We see the gunshots that have gone by my church actually about 3 different times over the summer. There was 40 to 60 shots fired down Clark Street. And many of our neighbors had to file reports with pictures of their cars that had the bullets in it. Then when we look at it afterwards, it's reported as property damage. So these are things that we're kind of seeing in the downtown area, and we're seeing it actually spread into other neighborhoods as well. You know, me and my wife, we have ministered to children, and a lot of times we would actually encounter children that had abusive relationships at home. And if they had a black eye from, let's say, a father figure or a mother that maybe beat them at home, we don't sit there and say your perception is your reality. We say that your reality is your reality, and we have to do something about it. I believe that with the management that we're seeing from the top down, we have brave individuals with our police department. We have to support them and back them up. I don't believe that that's actually been happening in our administrative capabilities of City Hall. I believe that from the top down, we need to be able to allow the officers to do their job. Now, they will say, we haven't enforced that, or we haven't said to our officers that, you know, they're not allowed to do their job. But tell that to the cop after cop after cop that has come into my coffee shop and said that they believe that the crime is up. And they believe that even the stats are false, and they believe that the city is unsafe, and all they want to do is their job, and that's what we will allow them to do with our city.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bowman. Mr. Pureval, the question to you, sir.
Yeah, it's an incredible honor to be here as mayor of Cincinnati in this moment, and I want to say thank you to Xavier University and, of course, to the Inquirer and to all of you. I want to also give a shout out to my beautiful wife, Dr. Whitney Whitus. And Cory, I'm jealous. I'm very confident my kids are not watching this. They are definitely doing something else. Look, I'm so glad that we started with crime, because without question, this council and I have made crime the top priority in our community. And I think without question, both in rhetoric but also in dollars, we have shown that we support our police officers, that we need to empower them to enforce the law. And while I believe that we need to continue to prioritize public safety, I understand and I hear from Cincinnati residents that they don't feel safe, particularly downtown. So it doesn't really matter, frankly, from my perspective, what the data says. What matters is what's in the hearts and minds of Cincinnatians, and too many of them don't feel safe, which is why this council has moved quickly to prioritize visibility. For the first time in a very long time, police officers are out of their squad cars and onto the street walking beats, interacting with the community, hearing from neighbors exactly what they're scared of. For the first time in a very, very long time, we are actually enforcing the curfew, and it has been extraordinarily successful. We're also enforcing loitering. The council just empowered our police officers to be more to prioritize enforcement more around our transit centers. But of course, we have more work to do. What's important, though, is a candidate with experience, with specifics on how we're going to address the crime, both the perception and the reality that too many people are victims of violent crime. We're not going to do that by pointing out the problems without solutions. We're going to do that by working together collaboratively with urgency, as this council has done.
Thank you, Mr. Pureval. Mr. Bowman, I'll give you an opportunity. I know you want to respond to that, and I'll ask you to respond to it in the framework of this question. You've seen the multi-million-dollar spending bill that the city passed, their crime-fighting package. I want to ask you, because I do want this to be focused on solutions and what you would push for and what you would do as mayor to address crime. Do you agree with the spending that the city has approved to fight crime, and are there things you disagree with? What would you have done differently?
I don't think it's wrong to say that we disagree with spending, but what the mayor did just say there is that for the first time you're seeing that. But last time I checked, he's been in office ever since 4 years ago. So why is it just happening now? The problem with City Hall right now is we're being reactive instead of proactive. The things that we got to have at our priorities need to take place before it happens, and that's what is happening with all the crime, is that there's no de-escalation tactics. It's only showing up worst case scenario. We need to be able, when you talk about practical things, there's a lot of community initiatives and a lot of things that are dividing the cops from the communities that they want to protect and serve. Whenever I ask the cops, what do we need to do? Do we need to accept help from the state? Do we need to do this? They continually say, just let us do their job, but their hands are being shackled by the initiatives, by the directives from City Hall. And then on top of that, when we have the ECC, the Emergency Communications Center, when people call 911, they get call takers that are disinterested. They get dispatchers that only dispatch in worst case scenarios. And then administratively, that's not being run with the mindset of public safety. We need to rethink administratively everything that's going on with the ECC, with these community initiatives. And then, once again, I will say it over and over, we have to let the police do their jobs. And part of that is protecting and serving the communities that they love.
Mr. Pureval, how do you respond to that? Has your administration, do you feel like handcuffed the police officers in the way that Mr. Bowman talks?
No, of course not. You asked for specifics, and my chief of staff is fond of saying words, words, words when people just talk without saying anything. He talked about administratively. I'm not really sure what that means. You know, what he talked about issues and policies. I think what he's talking about is the collaborative agreement. He is running on a position of dismantling the collaborative agreement, one of the pillars that makes Cincinnati police the national model for problem-solving oriented policing. This is what happens when someone moves here 4 years ago, has no idea about the history of this city, and starts accusing the collaborative agreement of making us less safe. I could not disagree more strongly. It's one thing to run for mayor without any specifics or ideas or policies or plans to put forward. It's another thing to run for mayor and have no interest in the history that got us here, in the struggle and in the progress, in the challenges that we have faced as a community and overcome. And making sure that Cincinnati continues to stand by its collaborative agreement is one of the central tenets of being mayor of this city.
Thank you. Mr. Bowman, I'll give you 1 minute to respond, and then we'll move on.
I'll say that you're going to hear a lot of things about what people perceive me to be. That in no way are we trying to dismantle the collaborative agreement, but the collaborative agreement takes two things, collaboration and agreement, and that's not what's happening from City Hall. We don't have managers properly, we don't have the right representatives to be able to make sure that this collaborative agreement is enforced properly in our city. And so it's actually been weaponized to be able to use against the cops, including black cops that actually love and want to protect this city. And then I'll say this as well. We cannot stand by and see people like Rhonda Wynn that are here on the front row, where her daughter, Krishanda, was shot weeks after the violence that we saw in July, and say that, oh, well, crime is down, crime is down. These are things that we have to hit head on, and we have to be there for victims like what we're seeing in our community.
All right.
So are you dismantling the collaborative agreement?
No.
You just criticized it?
We're
but
not,
you're-
no. What I'm saying
So
is
what does
that
it mean to have representatives enforcing the collaborative agreement improperly? Like, what does that
the
actually mean?
collaborative agreement is an understanding, but it also takes collaboration and
It's not an
agreement.
understanding. The Black United Front literally sued the city of Cincinnati because several unarmed black men and boys were killed.
Yes, sir.
It's not a
Well, let me
it's not
say,
an ethereal idea.
I am
It
not
is a
here
pillar.
to dismantle the collaborative agreement.
But
It's
you don't
a
even
long-standing
understand-
legislation that is in our city.
You don't
All right.
even understand the collaborative agreement, but you're criticizing it.
All right, gentlemen. All
Where
right.
did I criticize it? Did not
You
criticize
just
it at all.
said the collaborative agreement is being enforced against police officers.
No, I said it's been weaponized by individuals that do not support it.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen.
Okay.
All right.
Weaponized is different than, okay, weaponized is worse. I was trying to help you out there.
All right. All right, we'll move on to our next question. Nice spirited start to the evening. All right. Carl Weiser will take our next question, and we'll go to Mr. Pureval first.
Mayor Pureval, The Cincinnati Police Union did not endorse you and, in fact, took a vote of no confidence in your leadership. If reelected, how do you plan to get these police officers on your side again?
Yeah, well, it's really, really important to realize how hard being a police officer is, how much scrutiny, the fact that they are risking their lives every single day. I will always support our Cincinnati police officers because they are, without question, the best police officers in the country. I will continue to work collaboratively with the FOP, with the chief, and with police officers who are putting it on the line every day. And this council, again, has put their money where their mouth is. Cory Bowman is running with a slate of candidates. Some are MAGA, some are not. It's hard to say. Many of whom were on council and decided not to support the police by underfunding recruit classes. And that's why we're in a situation where police officers are overworked and over-scrutinized. And that's why this council, as opposed to the past, has invested in recruit classes every single year. And if we continue on that path, we will hit the complement that we need. This council gave the most generous contract to the FOP, I think, in the last 40 years, because we understand that in order to recruit and retain the best and the brightest of our police officers, we have to support them financially. This council also supported the Blue Line Foundation's creation of a mental health space for not just CPD, but for regional law enforcement, because their job is that hard. They are experiencing trauma every day. So of course retirements are up. Every step of the way, this council and I have said yes to CPD. The chief will tell you there is not a single ask that they have made that we have not followed up on. How do I continue to support them? By doing that and doubling down, not by using partisan attacks to divide our community, not by racializing public safety crises, but by remembering the motto of this city, that we know that we find strength in our unity. That's what we have to continue to do with our law enforcement professionals.
All right. Remember, crowd, please, let's try to refrain from the applause and allow the candidates just to answer the question. We'll have time to applaud at the end. Mr. Bowman, I think Mr. Weiser has a variation of that question, but I also know you probably want to get in on some of the things that Mr. Pureval said, so give him an additional 30 seconds on so he'll have an opportunity to rebut as well as answer the question. Carl.
So go ahead with
Yeah.
Mr. Bowman, you have no previous political experience. What makes you qualified to be the mayor of Cincinnati?
That I don't have any political experience. You know, I think that it's crazy to look across the aisle and say that the person that's running has no experience and that doesn't know what he's doing, yet he got the endorsement from the FOP, who does know what they're doing. And so when I talk to those officers, the key thing about it is that I heard their voices. And what happened over the summer, whenever we saw this violence that was happening, everybody wanted to racialize it, including people that were on my comment sections. But a week later, I was sharing videos of even people of the opposite color that were fighting downtown. Even when we saw the violence that was happening in Coryville, that just happened recently, where the 6 individuals got indicted. These are things that we have to be proactive against crime with, and the FOP understands this, the cops understand this, and also let's not forget that firefighters don't just fight fires, they actually clear the crime scenes, and they do so much with the first responders, and let's not forget that they have refused now to endorse the current incumbent of Mayor Aftab as well. So when you lose the confidence of these institutions that have built Cincinnati for public safety, I don't have any trust in the other side. And so when you say, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't know what he's doing, I think 4 years later, we can confidently say that you don't know what you're doing.
Mr. Pureval, I'll give you a minute to respond.
I guess what I'm confused by is, what does the opposite color mean to you?
You're confused by a lot, Mayor Aftab.
What does, you just said opposite color. Opposite of what? What does that mean?
No, because when the violence happened in July, everybody wanted to make it about black individuals that were attacking a white individual.
Not everybody.
Now,
That's not true.
denounce racism
Not
when it comes to that.
It is
because we have
MAGA
to see this.
extremists that you represent came to Cincinnati
I don't represent anybody.
and radicalized.
Please, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't represent anybody.
Hold on for a
but
second.
Cincinnati.
Hold on for a second. Both candidates, we talked about this beforehand. Let's speak one at a time because the audience can't hear you when you're
fair
talking
enough.
over each other. So, Mr. Pureval, this is your minute respond.
I don't know why the audience is booing the fact that he represents MAGA. I mean, it is, you either support the Trump agenda or you don't. You can't run for mayor and not be concerned with the federal employees who are getting fired, not be concerned with the racializing of our own public safety challenges here in our community. You haven't said anything about the fact that President Trump wants to send in the National Guard. In fact, you were asking for the National Guard to come into Cincinnati right after the fight. These are the things that I think we need clarity from Mr. Bowman, because it is true that he has no record. It is true that he has no experience. He unfortunately has not taken this campaign seriously, not showed up in the community, has spent more time on Fox News running down the city that he ultimately wants to lead. That is not how you lead the great city of Cincinnati. You lead us by bringing us together, by taking on the significant challenges that we have with specifics and with plans.
Thank you, Mr.
Not with
Pureval.
rhetoric and divisiveness.
Thank you, Mr. Pureval. 1 minute, Mr. Bowman, to respond to anything you would like to respond to.
I'd like to
Mr.
respond. Number one, we do not need the National Guard in Cincinnati. We need competent leadership from City Hall. Number two, whenever you say that you're accepting help in a summer where people are feeling unsafe, but then you only accept 2 days out of the month from the state, that is a slap in the face to the people downtown. And then when you said, oh, what does administratively mean, all right? Let's talk about that night whenever all the violence happened. The reason why that violence happened wasn't because of the music festival. It wasn't because of the race aspect. It happened because administratively you guys failed. The chief got on a press conference and said that there were 11 officers in the third shift Central Business District. I looked at the Kronos report, and there was 3 officers and only 2 PVOs that night. What that means is that you did not fully equip your city to be safe that night on one of the largest populated nights of our city. And that's what we're going to change, is we're going to be proactive when I'm mayor of Cincinnati.
30 seconds, Mr. Pureval.
He keeps saying
30
proactive,
seconds.
but he has no specifics about what he would be proactive about. I'm trying to follow exactly what he would do differently, other than I don't know. It's still not clear to me. Look, I think it's important to talk about public safety in a serious and sober way.
I'm very
Because
serious.
there are far too many kids who are victims of gun violence, and far too many of the perpetrators themselves are kids. That requires professional, serious leadership with specifics on how we are going to save our kids. He wants to just put everybody in jail, including our children.
All right,
I
Mr.
am
Pureval.
working hard with this council on comprehensive strategies to lift people up out of poverty
Thank you.
and
Thank you,
break
Mr.
the
Pureval.
cycle of generational poverty.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to our next question, which is going to be asked by Clara McKinley, and that question will go to Mr. Bowman first.
A number of immigrants in Cincinnati with no criminal records other than immigration status issues have been picked up by the federal government in recent months. How do you feel about the detaining of these immigrants?
What I'd say is that we need to focus on the citizens of Cincinnati first. That's what we need to focus on. And then also, let's take into account that this city council and this mayor have put out that we are a sanctuary city. But when we talk to the police officers and law enforcement, there's no clear directives on what that means. So actually, they're saying we're a sanctuary city on paper, but our law enforcement still cooperates with ICE. And so that's what we need to understand, is that where is the line drawn when it comes to city council? What are we directing our law enforcement and our public safety? What does that mean when it comes to a sanctuary city?
Mr. Pureval, question to you, and maybe answer that for us.
Yeah, he took a question about federal agents who are kidnapping people from the streets and turned it into a question about sanctuary city. Guys, whatever your political persuasion is, the mayor has to be interested in not just asking questions, but having an idea of what is actually happening. And if your residents are being taken by masked agents, you should have an opinion about that. You should have a plan on how you're going to address that. You
What's
shouldn't
the
turn
plan?
that
What's the
question
current plan of the
into an
city? You're the one in
attack-
office.
Bowman?
into an attack
Bowman?
on sanctuary cities. So he seems to have a lot of questions about how the city is actually run and what the job of the mayor is. So let me educate him. Before this council came into office, the previous council and mayor labeled Cincinnati a sanctuary city, and we have not changed that. But it doesn't matter whether you are an undocumented immigrant or a naturalized citizen or a citizen born here. If you commit a violent crime, CPD is coming after you, and we're going to hold you accountable. And yes, we will deport you because you do not need to be here. Now, otherwise, there is no role for local law enforcement to enforce federal immigration law. None. Of course, Cincinnati police officers will show up to any public safety crisis. Of course, they're always going to maintain the safety of our community. And of course, if there is a federal judge with a warrant, we are going to execute on that. This is basic stuff, Cory. If you want to run the city, if you want to run the police department, you should know these things. You shouldn't be educated by your opponent on stage when you're just weeks away from the election. Take this seriously.
Mr. Bowman, I'll give you a minute to respond, and I'll also ask you again, I'll reiterate the question, how do you feel about what is happening to some of these immigrants in the city of Cincinnati? So,
Well, we can't lose the humanity of the citizens of Cincinnati and people that are affected by this. But I do agree with the mayor when he said that if there are criminals, that we should deport them. And that's where I will stand on that, is that from the law of the city, we need to focus on city laws and city processes. I think one of the biggest things that people are getting tired of when it comes to City Hall is that they're trying to copy and paste national politics into City Hall, but we're glorified custodians. You have the keys, you're supposed to make sure the streets are clean and safe and the potholes are filled and the money is spent properly, and that is not being done from City Hall right now.
So do you
30
support,
seconds, Mr. Pureval.
Do you
30.
support federal agents coming into the city and terrorizing our immigrant community? Are you concerned that truancy is up
Like
because
what you
immigrant
said, I
families do
support
not?
what the law is.
If I could finish, are you concerned that students are not going to class because they're afraid that ICE is going to come to their school and take them away from their family? This is the same generation of kids that couldn't go to school because of the pandemic. Are you worried about victims of violent crime who are afraid of going to the authorities to hold people accountable because they're
thank you, Mr.
afraid of being deported?
Thank you, Mr.
That's
Pureval.
happening in the city right now.
We'll give Mr. Bowman an opportunity to respond. Mr. Bowman, 30 seconds on that, and then we're gonna give you an opportunity to respond, 30 seconds, and then we'll move on to our
No, I'll
next.
say what the mayor said, is that we need to uphold the law when it comes to coordinating with federal and when it comes to state, when it comes to county, and that's where I'll stand as mayor of Cincinnati.
So he has no answer, but he wants to be your mayor.
All right, thank you. Thank you both. All right, we'll move on to our next question here. Our next question will come from Mr. Carl Weiser, and it will go to Mr. Pureval first.
Mayor Pureval, how would you describe your relationship with the Trump administration at this time?
I am interested in working with everyone for the benefit of Cincinnati. I have strong disagreements with President Trump, strong disagreements on tariffs that are increasing prices across the board. Also, the high interest rates because of the weak global economy. I have disagreements with using federal dollars as a blackmail for people who disagree with his policies. There's a lot I disagree with President Trump and his administration. But irrespective of my own politics, what is most important to me is the best interest of the city. And so I will work with anyone at any level of government, of any political persuasion, in order to meet the needs of our citizens. In fact, after Senator Moreno called on me to resign and ran down the city for several weeks on Fox News, I met with him. And we are now working collaboratively with our business community to invest in our courthouse and bring it out of the Stone Age and invest in the IT infrastructure to make it more transparent so we can hold criminals more accountable. I've partnered with a Republican governor to bring State Highway Patrol into the city to support our local law enforcement to continue to prioritize public safety. Again, it's not just words, it's a record of working with people on both sides of the aisle in order to continue to push the city forward.
Mr. Weiser, your question for Mr. Bowman.
And the same question for you, if you're mayor, how would you see your relationship with the Trump
Well,
administration.
I would want to address that. He said that he wanted to work with people on every level, but you were at a public protest for No Kings shouting down President Trump, saying that he's a dictator.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
So the thing is, though, is that when I talk to people on the streets, the national politics is on everybody's mind. But when it comes to City Hall, people are tired of it. They just want people to do their job when it comes to taking care of the citizens of Cincinnati. And so when it comes to working with these organizations, and when it comes to working with the county, the state, and federal, it's not just about tolerating them. It's not just about waiting until an election year and then getting forced to do your job the last year. You need to be able to be proactive in working with them from the very start, and that's what needs to happen. That's what will happen with me, is that I will be, in the first 100 days, we will be openly getting these relationships on both sides of the aisle. I don't care who's governor, I don't care who's president, I don't care who's vice president. You know, I care about him, but as far as who's in the office right now, and let me say this as well, because let's just address the elephant in the room. My brother's J.D. Vance, okay? But the thing is that we're running this race for Cincinnati. And time again, people have tried to get me to bad talk my brother or to get me to be ashamed. I will never be ashamed of family. The man has gone from abject poverty to the vice president of the United States in such a short amount of time. I'm not going to be ashamed of that. But the case is that we're running this race for the city of Cincinnati, and we're going to be doing the job for the citizens.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on.
Can I just make one point, Kevin?
30 seconds, sir.
Yeah,
Very
just
quickly.
one, just to set the table. I couldn't work with the Trump administration my first year in office because he was not president. So
Well, you
the
were only
Biden-
working
the
with the Biden
Biden-
administration
the
so you
Biden
could get a
administration-
position on his
the
cabinet.
Biden administration, the Biden administration.
You're the
worked with
Brian
us.
Kelly of Cincinnati politics. You're using
Mr.
Cincinnati
Bowman, please.
to get
Mr.
to
Bowman,
DC.
allow him to answer, sir.
Okay.
Let's respect the rules, please. Let's respect the rules. Mr. Pureval, give him a few extra seconds. Mr. Pureval, please finish your.
Brian Kelly.
Give him all the time you want.
Brian Kelly's a deep cut. So again, you're confused. The Biden administration was in office my first year. We worked very effectively with them. In fact, we got the single largest federal grant in our country's history, $1.6 billion, to do the companion Brent Spence Bridge, which we are very proud of. And we will continue to work with the Trump administration where our values align and where it's in the best interest of the city. But let's just be clear about the fact that the Trump administration is making cuts across the board that's affecting the University of Cincinnati. It's affecting the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. The cuts to Medicaid are going to be profoundly impactful, particularly
Thank you, Mr.
to
Pureval.
our low-income residents in Cincinnati. And you should have an opinion about that
Thank you,
if you
sir.
want to be mayor.
All right, we're going to move on. That's going to have to be the last word on that subject. Mr. Bowman, this next question, we're going to get into some housing issues here and neighborhood growth issues. The controversial rezoning of Hyde Park Square not only grabbed headlines, but it rallied residents in the neighborhood and across the city to push back against development that largely disregarded their concerns. It sparked a petition drive and a referendum to repeal the zoning, which would have been on the ballot, but for city council and the developer backing down. How much weight do you think that residents and community council voices should carry in development decisions made by city council?
Well, I think when it comes to the Hyde Park issue, that was basically the first time that we're seeing what this Connected Communities initiative is all about. It's about City Hall dictating what the zoning needs to be for our communities without considering the voices of the community. When we talked about Hyde Park Square, I was in City Hall and I was blown away. Like I said, I don't have political background, right? So I'm in City Hall and I see hundreds of people come up to the mic and they're overwhelmingly against the variance that is on the docket for the day. And they state that, and they have a petition of over 4,000 names on this petition to say, no, we don't want the variance. Well, then all of a sudden I saw that the city council and the mayor voted 7-2 against the voices of the community. Now, this community, it wasn't Democrat or Republican. These were just members of the community of Hyde Park that did not want the variance to go through. And our elected officials actually ignored their opinions, and they voted against it. And so that's something that will change whenever I'm mayor of Cincinnati. A vote is not a blank check to do whatever you want. A vote is a confidence that you're always going to listen to the voices of the community and actually say, hey, this is what they want. This is what our policies are going to reflect.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bowman. Same question to you, Mr. Pureval.
Yeah, Mr. Bowman is running on a policy that has gotten us into this housing crisis in the first place. He's running with a slate of MAGA candidates who were previously on council and failed to acknowledge the fact that we are in a housing crisis and ultimately did nothing about it. This council took the opposite approach, understanding that housing affordability is a problem all across the city. They took bold action to make sure that affordable housing was a priority, not just a priority in rhetoric, but a priority in dollars. Working together, they created the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and funded it to over $100 million to provide financing to bring more units onto the market more quickly. And that has resulted in 3 times the amount of affordable housing being financed in their first 4 years versus the previous council's 5. They worked even harder. Cincinnati is the first city in the entire state to completely reform our zoning code. And it was important because you can finance all the housing projects you want, but if it is illegal to build housing in Cincinnati based on an antiquated zoning code, then you won't build housing. And we haven't been building housing. Our population is growing, but we're losing housing at the same time. And so of course mortgages are going up, rents are going up, and property taxes are going up. Building housing is hard. Changing zoning is hard, but it's important because unfortunately, that zoning code has led to a Cincinnati that is segregated with concentrations of poverty. And this council said no more, not on our watch. We are going to do the hard, sometimes unpopular work of building housing at every income level all across this city because poll after poll will tell you that Cincinnatians think we need more housing and we need more specifically affordable housing. It's easy to stand on this stage and say that you don't support building housing because it upsets people. That's the kind of campaign he's running. That's the kind of mayor he will be, just going with whatever the most popular issue is. That's why he called for the National Guard when we had that fight.
So, Mr.
because he thought
Pureval,
it was popular.
I'm going to hold your feet to the fire here, and I thank you because you're actually a little bit ahead of us in terms of answering the affordable housing question that was to come. But my question specifically was, how much weight should community council and residents' voices play in development decisions based by city council? So
Yeah,
I'd love for you to answer that.
I would
one
love to
directly.
answer that very, very specifically. They're an important part of any decision that council has. In fact, all the council members, all of them met with Hyde Park residents. Many of them toured the spot where the development was going to happen, a surface parking lot. Many of them met with business owners and residents. I did the same thing. Listening to our community is central to us representing our community, but it is important to elect leaders who are not just going to tell you what you want to hear and who are going to have the courage to disagree. We can listen and also disagree. Unfortunately, what happens in Hyde Park has an impact on housing access throughout the city. No neighborhood is impervious to housing being built. We have to build more housing. And this council has had the courage of their convictions to lead with that kind of integrity and that kind of courage. You shouldn't want to elect people who are just going to tell you what you want to hear. That has led us to a housing crisis because previous councils did not invest in housing. Previous councils did not want to build housing for fear of upsetting people. And you know what the result of that is? We are displacing Black and brown residents as we speak. They can no longer afford to live in Cincinnati. So we either change that now by building more housing and being resolved to doing it, or Cincinnati over the years will turn into a city for only wealthy people. And that will not happen as long as I'm mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Pureval. Any rebuttal to that, Mr. Bowman?
We're moving on to the affordable housing topic, correct?
Okay, yeah, that's going to be our next question. You'll hold it till then. All right, so our next question then will come from Claire McKinley, and it will go to Mr. Bowman first, I believe. Yes, Mr. Bowman.
How do you define affordable housing? And give me one metric that by the end of your 4-year term would show you've been successful in creating more affordable housing.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mayor Aftab did say that the affordable housing initiatives from City Hall are well-funded, and that is true. But the funds are not going to the people because unlike many political people that just come in like a parachute and just tell you how it is, we pastor a church with congregation members that live in this affordable housing. Now, in the West End, there's about 67 to 70% concentrated poverty, concentrated affordable housing, or government subsidized housing, whatever you want to call it. And so I do agree that we cannot have these concentrations of poverty, which turns into concentrated crime, and that does affect the Black community. But what I do not agree with is the cabal that's leading all this. Because for me, I talk with single moms in my church, and they say, and I won't call out the organizations by name, but there are nonprofits, NGOs, and organizations that are being funded through these affordable housing initiatives, and they are not going to the residents. I have a single mom in my church that she hasn't had HVAC or heat in the first year of her apartment living in one of these units. I have another lady that when she raises the concern about mold in her apartment, she gets told by the landlord, hey, wipe it up with bleach. And they cannot actually complain about it because if they do, they immediately get put on the eviction notice. And mark my words, these are not just, random people in Cincinnati. These are organizations that regularly meet in City Hall. And that's what I'm going to weed out when I'm mayor of Cincinnati. We're going to make sure that the funds go toward the proper developers and the proper community leaders to make sure that the tenants are taken care of.
Mr. Pureval, same question to you, sir, and any response you'd like to make.
Yeah, he landed on NGOs, but the question was about how are you going to build housing and what is the metric for building housing? And I'll just tell you what this council has been working on. We have been working on a bold goal of 40,000 units over the next 10 years, 4,000 units every single year. We have not hit that goal yet, but we are working very, very hard to finance the projects, to legalize the projects through zoning code changes, and to make sure that we have strong relationships with the federal government and the state government to ensure that we are getting our fair share of low-income housing tax credits, which make up about 90% of the affordable developments happening in the city of Cincinnati. Those are the metrics, those are the facts, those are the strategies. Again, there is a difference on the stage between someone who is focused on how to push the city forward and someone who is not even sharing which one of these NGOs he's concerned about.
POA.
If there are,
You put $1 million into POA's pocket.
So great.
CMHA, which your
Thanks
office
for-
was calling all week.
Thanks
him
for
finish his answer.
actually being transparent with people. What is important to know, though, is that 66% of the city's residents are actually renters, the folks who are being targeted by predatory landlords. That's why this council, with the leadership of Councilmember Owens specifically, passed access to council to make sure that the people that you care about are actually getting represented in court to prevent an eviction. That's why we have worked to put emergency rental assistance on the table to make sure that residents have access to a settlement account so they can actually stay in their homes. And that's why it's important to elect leaders like our council members who are passionate about these issues and are not just taking personal stories and repeating the trauma that they're experiencing just to get access to power.
Mr. Pureval, real quickly, 30 seconds to answer this question. I think part of the question was asked was to define affordable housing. What does that look like? What is that dollar amount? What is it? Because affordable housing seems like it has different meanings for different people. What is that?
I'm happy to answer that question, but I'm interested to hear what Cory has to say because
he's going to answer it as
I'm
well.
about
but
to
I'm-
give him the answer, Kevin. That was the
Well,
problem. I'd like to hear.
but
I'd like to hear him say it.
With due respect, Mr. Mayor, I asked you
fine.
the question.
He did answer. Anyway, all right. It's 30 to 60% AMI, area median income.
All right. Mr. Bowman, same thing to you. What does affordable housing look like to you? How much is that? What does that look like?
30-60% AMI, median income.
Told you, Kevin. I just,
Well,
people have been cheating off my homework all my life.
all right. We'll move on. We'll move on to the next question, which will come from Carl Weiser, and it'll be for Mr. Pureval.
We'll change the topic entirely to speed humps which some residents love and other residents hate. Would you like to see more of them added for the sake of pedestrian safety and to control speeding in the neighborhoods?
I want as many speed humps as is necessary. I want as many curb bump outs as is necessary. I want as many elevated crosswalks as is necessary. I want as many street lights to be converted to LED as necessary in order to prevent preventable deaths of people being mowed down by cars. There is no excuse in our city for people to die on the street because of distracted drivers. And look, I get that speed humps are annoying. I'm annoyed by them too. But we will not, this council and I will not stop doing everything that we can to protect our pedestrians and to continue to prioritize a walkable community. I wish that that the mayor had the power to require driver's ed in our high schools. I wish that there was something that we could do to educate our drivers about the risks associated with texting and driving. But unfortunately, our hands are somewhat tied. But what we can do is invest in an infrastructure that makes sure that we're prioritizing their safety and does everything that we possibly can to prevent these deaths.
All right. Mr. Bowman, same question to you.
You know, when I was first driving, when you're a first driver, you make all these mistakes. You want to use your phone. Back then we had Nokias. But you want to do all these things that can be considered unsafe. And I remember there was a lot of deterrence back then. It was called the cops. Because if they saw us disobeying the law when it came to traffic law, they actually did their job. And that's not what's being allowed in our city. And what's happened right now, I understand that there is a reason why we have non-pursuit laws, because we don't want high-speed chases to risk lives in the downtown area. But what it's evolved into is that people are openly taunting our officers, speeding by because they know that there's no consequences for their actions. And even when they have dirt bikes or ATVs or whatever, they're being by our cops, taunting them, because they know that they're not going to be pursued. They know that there's no consequences. So I would say that a speed hump is a Band-Aid for what really needs to be done, which is proper law enforcement and patrolling on our streets.
All right.
He is, he is really going after
30
our
seconds.
police officers. I disagree
30
with
seconds.
Cory about criticizing our police officers. Our police officers work incredibly hard. They do a very difficult job. They're under extraordinary scrutiny, and this council and I will continue to have their back and support them as they continue to make sacrifices to make Cincinnati safe.
All right, we'll move on. I want to make sure we get this question in because this question will come from Claire McKinley, our Xavier representative, and it is a question that I'm sure many of our Xavier students here have a question about. So Claire, if you would like to ask your question, and we will direct this one first to Mr. Bowman.
With the current struggle for postgraduate students to find jobs, do you have any ideas on how to increase job opportunities as well as combat brain drain and keep recent college students in Cincinnati?
Yeah, well, I believe you have to see a future of a career in Cincinnati. And we've put such an emphasis on small businesses, which is good. I own a small business. But I think that we've forgotten the value of bringing industry, manufacturing, logistics, a lot of these jobs that can employ large amounts of people and you can build a career in. So in the West End, we have a lot of individuals, a lot of youth that whenever they graduate high school, that they see no option of jobs in their area, and so they have to go outside the city for proper careers. I don't believe that should be the case. Weeks ago, I got criticized because I actually went to New York Stock Exchange, and everybody thought I was going there to get corrupt money. I really didn't make any money there, but I was talking to industry leaders, and I was saying, bring jobs to Cincinnati. We have an entire west side and east side where we can bring jobs back, and a lot of them say, we don't want to touch these downtown areas because of all the red tape and because of what we have to deal with the city hall leaders.
Mr. Pureval, same question to you.
I think it's incumbent on Cincinnati to continue to grow. This council and I have been very focused on bringing jobs to Cincinnati. We just, a couple of years ago, announced the MedPace deal, which for Ready was their largest job creation announcement in their history. This summer, We're bringing jobs downtown. Paycor is moving their headquarters to the old Saks building. It's being redeveloped right across from a $600 million convention center reimagining and a new hotel. But this question is also central to the housing discussion. 50 years ago, the median house cost was like $75,000, and it constituted a fraction of your income. Now, it's over $300,000 to buy a home, and it is a huge amount of your income. Young people can't afford that. They are looking for dense, diverse, walkable neighborhoods with good access to public transportation, with good access to public art, and that are safe. And that's exactly what this council has been investing in. That's why Connected Communities has gotten rid of the red tape that you oppose in order to increase investment into our neighborhood business districts and along our transit lines. That's why this council has been leading to bring bus rapid transit to Cincinnati, because younger people don't want to have to own a car. They want to rely on public transportation to get to and from their work, to their home, to places to hang out. That's why this council has also been focused on bringing more live entertainment, large events to Cincinnati with the creation of the Sports Commission. My opponent doesn't believe Cincinnati is good enough to host large international events. I disagree. There is a clear choice on stage between a growth mindset and someone who wants to flip the natty and take us backwards. I ask Cincinnatians to reject that and continue to reach for growth and prosperity.
All right. Can I respond? I'll give you 30 seconds to respond to that if you'd like.
Well, you mentioned that 50 years ago that the housing was a lot lower. I will say that it was 50 years ago when the last Republican mayor was in Cincinnati as well. On top of that, I will say this, that from a young college kid, I do see that a lot of them want to live in the downtown area. They want to have the dense housing to start off with, but I disagree with the idea that they want to stay that way the rest of their life. I believe a lot of young people want to get married, have kids, they want to have cars, they want to have houses. I think that we've actually demonized property owners, and we've decentivized the ability to own your own home or own your own property in Cincinnati. Instead, we want to make it easier for renting, and I don't think that's the strategy that we need to have.
So what would you do to increase home ownership?
I would incentivize home ownership. If you talk about a housing crisis and you talk about vacancies, you look at all of the West End, there's all sorts of vacancies and empty buildings. I think we need to incentivize revamping these old historic buildings that have so much charm, instead of only incentivizing the connected developers to build concrete boxes for people that feels like a prison.
Again, that's not true. There's a residential tax abatement that this council led to change that made sure that the West End, sure that the West End got.
I have a developer right here that gets turned down because he's not connected.
Let him finish.
If you could just listen to, so you know what you're talking about. So the residential tax abatement was changed by this council to make sure that neighborhoods like the West End got the biggest tax abatement allowable by state law, and that communities like Hyde Park got very, very small incentives. So we are doing exactly what you're calling for, which is, again, something you should probably know if you want to be mayor.
All right, gentlemen, we are nearing the end of our hour, and so we're going to move through. We've got a few rapid fire questions here. As I mentioned, these are questions designed to take 30 seconds or less to answer, so I would ask that you would adhere to that time limit as much as possible, and then we'll get to your closing statements. All right, first one, this one will go to you, Mr. Pureval. Would you rule out an income tax increase?
No. I didn't rule out an income tax increase my first time running for mayor. I won't rule it out this time. It makes no sense to make commitments about our finances without understanding how bad this economy might get based on the tariffs and based on the chaos coming out of Washington, D.C.
All right. Mr. Bowman, would you rule out an income tax increase?
I will never push on any tax increase because I don't believe the incompetency of City Hall should be paid for by the taxpayers.
All right. Audience, please, we want to get through. I'm sure you're going to want to hear the answers to these questions. So let's kind of try to hold it down till we get through it. All right, Mr. Pureval, does the city need a new arena, and are you willing to invest taxpayer dollars to make it happen?
The city absolutely needs a new arena as we continue to compete to be a national destination We have to make sure that we have world-class infrastructure. The fact that we don't have a world-class arena, modern arena, means that we're losing to Louisville and Indianapolis and Columbus. Now, of course, it's going to have to be a public-private partnership. Of course, there will be public funds available. However, just like we did with TQL Stadium, my expectation is that the private sector take the lion's share of that investment and make sure that it's actually for the public good. I'm glad you're asking about how we pay for it, because too much of the focus has been where it goes. I am committed to making sure that we have a capital stack that is good for Cincinnati and drives economic investment. When Taylor Swift and Lionel Messi came to Cincinnati in the same summer, it had a $75 million impact in just one weekend. We are losing out on that every single weekend in the summer, and we have to fix that as a community.
Well, since you brought it up, where should it go?
Oh, we have three options. The current site, we have well, I'm very proud of the fact that not only is downtown thriving, it's actually growing. Because of this council's leadership, we've actually reclaimed 2 city blocks directly west of the convention center. It could go there, or it could go at the CET site. But again, what's most important is how we pay for it.
All right. Mr. Bowman, do we need a new arena? Do you support taxpayer dollars to fund it? And where do you think it should go if so?
Well, first off, yeah, downtown is thriving. We just have had shots fired at Fountain Square at 5:20 in the afternoon a couple of days ago. But when it comes to losing to Louisville and Dayton, we're not losing because of a new arena. We're losing because of the crime and the infrastructure and the potholes and the capacity of our city. I believe that if a new arena does come, that does not need to come from the city taxpayer. I think that we can facilitate that through the parking or through the infrastructure capacity, which we need anyway. But when it comes to an actual arena, I think that City Hall needs to first focus on crime and infrastructure.
Mr. Pureval, if reelected, do you pledge to serve all 4 years?
Yes.
Mr. Bowman, is there anything you would criticize the Trump administration for?
Yeah, I don't like his hair.
All right.
Yeah,
Mayor
whoever wrote
Pureval
that
has
for
a
you
lot
did a
better
great
hair.
job. That was good, yeah.
Mr. Pureval, is there anything you would have done differently in your handling of the now infamous brawl downtown at 4th and Elm Street? If so, what would you have done?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the national story around Cincinnati was challenging for Cincinnati and, of course, for our future. As mayor, as I've mentioned, it is my highest priority to prioritize public safety. And anytime anyone is a victim of violent crime in our community, it weighs on all of council and me and the administration. And that's why we work very hard to make sure that it doesn't happen. In this instance, what I would do differently is I would be more proactive in putting out a statement. And my learning is that when these things happen and when they are nationalized by outside forces who are looking to divide Cincinnati, it's important to treat it like a serious issue akin to an officer-involved shooting. Even though my opponent has criticized the collaborative agreement, it is now the national model for how police and community respond to police officer-involved shootings. We have a press conference within 24 hours. We regularly update the public about the investigation and about impending charges. And we didn't do that this time. In the future, that is exactly the blueprint that you can expect Cincinnati to follow.
Mr. Bowman, what would you have done differently if you had been mayor?
I would have done exactly what I was doing, which was, and I didn't know all the details because I wasn't at City Hall, but I will tell you this, the Monday after all of the violence happened, my phone was ringing off the hook by national media outlets that had flown into Cincinnati. And I told them, I wasn't asking for these interviews, but I said, why are you asking to interview me? They said, because we're not hearing anything from City Hall and we're not hearing anything from the police chief. And we're just trying to find whatever story we can. I don't think it's right to leave people in the dark. I know you have to have an investigation that's ongoing. You have to let all the details come out, but you have to be transparent enough to know that your citizens come first, and they need to know that your leadership is on top of it, and that didn't happen.
Mr. Bowman, last question in our rapid fire round. It's been reported that you didn't vote in city elections and you want people to vote for you as mayor. Explain that to our audience.
Yeah, I would say that the last mayoral election, that there was 73% of active voters that didn't show up either. I think there's a lot of disenfranchised voters that don't feel like the city hall represents them, myself included. This is me saying that I'm willing to step up and do my part now, and I believe that many other people are now following suit.
Mr. Pureval, what's your plan to get rents down in the city of Cincinnati?
We have to continue to build housing. We have to continue to prioritize building affordable housing, even if it's unpopular, even if it's hard. That requires continuing to be invested in our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It means continuing to look at creative ways to allow zoning and incentives and federal dollars and tax breaks to continue to prioritize those between 30 and 60% AMI. And we have to have strong relationships with the people that are actually building the housing. All of that is hard. It is very hard to build housing when interest rates are so high and when construction costs continue to go up due to these tariffs. But this council has been clear-eyed and aggressive, working urgently to do just that. We need 4 more years in order to catch up to the housing stock that we desperately need, and we need elected officials with the courage of their convictions to do it.
Mr. Bowman, lastly, you, same question. What's your plan to get rents down in Cincinnati?
Well, I think that what they're doing actively on the surface seems to be the right plan, but it's involving connected developers that are only the ones that are getting their pockets filled, and I don't think that that's right. I believe that landlords need to be held accountable, and I think that that's where the process needs to start first, because we have to think about the tenants first. It doesn't make sense to just keep on stacking more affordable housing that is leaving our tenants in pain and suffering. We've got to make sure that the system works for them first and then continue on. I think that the goal of our city is our local developers, people that sometimes can only do 1 or 2 properties at a time, but a lot of them get turned down in the West End because there are these big conglomerates that are actually tied in with the city, and they're the only ones that get the cut of it.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. We're going to move into our closing statements, and as I mentioned at the beginning, the order in which they would be given was determined by a coin toss before tonight. Mr. Pureval won the coin toss, and he's elected to have the final word. So, Mr. Bowman, you'll have 2.5 minutes to make your closing case to the audience and the viewing audience here tonight.
You know, I think a big thing with our political culture right now, we've lost the love for people. We've lost the love for life and the respect for differences of opinion. There's probably a lot of people in this room that me and you disagree on a lot of things. But I will tell you this, that your opinion matters and that you need to be respected in that matter. Every single opinion in here needs to be respected and needs to be heard. And that, I believe, is what elected officials need to represent. You're hearing a lot of things that come our way. Not once have I ever criticized the collaborative agreement. I basically say that the process moving forward needs to be better for our citizens. Never once did I call for the National Guard to be in Cincinnati. We don't have violent riots. We don't have the same things as other cities are experiencing, but we do need to have competency from the top down in order to manage crime properly. And so that's what we're standing on. I'm not going to copy and paste national politics into this campaign. We are running this on city issues. We've got to spend our money not only wisely, but we got to make sure that that money goes toward the right things, not from a corrupt system. We've got to make sure that our streets are taken care of. People are tired of the potholes. People are tired of the snow removal. This last winter, there was a week where my business didn't have customers because the snow wasn't removed. And there are many people that have that same story. You're not running against a politician. I have no political aspirations. I am just very disappointed with what the city has done in the last 4 years of your administration, and that's why I've chosen to run, and that's what we're going to be standing on for the next 4 and 8 years when we are mayor of Cincinnati.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. You guys will be able to do that again in just a minute. All right. Mr. Pureval, your opportunity now for your closing statement,
Thank you,
sir.
Kevin. Thank you to the Inquirer. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to Xavier, and thank you to Cory. It takes a lot of courage to step into the arena, and I really salute you and your family. Look, I'm running for mayor because Cincinnati is at a crossroads. When this council and I came into office, we were dealing with several challenges. We were dealing with the COVID pandemic. We were dealing with downtown that was being hollowed out because of remote work. We were dealing with significant distrust from the community because corruption had rocked Cincinnati City Hall. And this council got to work. They got to work by investing $600 million to reimagine the convention center and build a headquarter hotel. Got to work winning the $1.6 billion from the White House in order to build the Brent Spence Companion Bridge and reclaim 2 city blocks of land to continue to build downtown. Because of remote work, they got to work investing in housing. We are second in the nation for taking underutilized office space and turning it into housing. We are third in the nation for lowest vacancy rates downtown. That is a record of success by itself, but then they also got to work dealing with a budget that was upside down, a $400 million deferred capital maintenance bill left by previous councils, many of whom Mr. Bowman is running with. And they got to work by creating a railroad trust fund, seeding it with $1.6 billion. Instead of $25 million a year for infrastructure, we got 56 last year, we're getting 58 this year, and that principal of $1.6 billion has grown to $1.8 billion. We will get more money every single year because of that decision. And infrastructure will have a stream of revenue, not just in the next 4 years, but over the next 2 generations because of the courage of this council. That is a record of results that they can be proud of. But we are not nearly finished. There is so much more work to do to drive growth, to drive housing, and to drive public transportation. We cannot flip back and go back now. We have to double down on the progress and find strength in our unity and create a brighter Cincinnati together. Thank you.